Hey everybody, it's Julie Quinn, and I'm going to go over Module 7 with you, specifically focusing on the critical analysis essay. Of course, beginning of the module, there's a discussion of revision strategies with large and small scale that focused on in the last discussion. But project analysis essay revision is a really important one, and you're going to grow your assignment significantly. And so what I'd like you to do is really take the time to focus on the feedback that everybody has gotten from week 5 at some point in week 6. So everybody should have feedback at this point that you're watching this video. You go over this assignment overview and then make sure you use this table, this rubric table, as an editorial checklist to make sure you're addressing all of the major pieces of the assignment puzzle. You don't want to leave any points out. You want to make sure that you get every point, because this assignment is worth almost 3 times the value of the draft. And that makes sense, right? The draft is you're practicing these ideas. You're starting to put it together. Drafts aren't meant to be complete or perfect. But by the time you submit this project, the goal is to have a finessed, considered final project. Okay? So the project for this course is the creation of this analysis essay. Remember, an analysis is more than a summary. A summary just repeats what a text said in your own words. But an analysis is sort of based on your thesis. Are you saying that this is a strong or weak argument? That's usually the most straightforward way to sort of set this assignment up. Strong or weak argument. And then you develop that thesis. It is a strong or weak argument about, and it focuses on these particular features, X, Y, and Z. Those are those reasons in your thesis that you worked on in Module 4. And for this class, the exam list is set up with 3. In other classes, you know, in other papers like in 123 and beyond, you may not have 3 reasons. But your essay must have these features. And so I'm going to zoom in on this so you can see this really closely. Okay, you're going to have 3 sections of your paper. This is the framework of a traditional academic essay. An introduction paragraph, it's about half a page. Shouldn't be much longer than that. This is a short paper. I know some of you are rolling your eyes right now, but 3 to 4 pages of an essay is short. You move into your other classes, you'll be easily writing 6 to 8 and more, depending on the courses in your major and the type of assignment that you're doing. The introduction provides background. It's an overview of the work by naming the title with proper capitalization and naming the author in full the first time you name them. Often, in between A and B, you put in what's called a hook detail, and I've left feedback for you on that. Some sort of statistic or quote or something from the text that will attract a reader, will pull a reader into the text. And so you add that and you sandwich that between A and B. Then you use your thesis for Module 4. Consider the feedback as the end of the introduction. You build readers up to your argument. In American-style Western academic writing, we don't leave our arguments a mystery. We lay it out, we make the argument, and then we defend it in the body paragraphs. This section is multiple paragraphs. Remember, go back into your prior assignments, especially 2.5 and 3.2, I believe are the right numbers of those. And you set up some key points. Each of your body paragraphs should focus on one key point. Sometimes 2 paragraphs per key point. There may be multiple reasons that Roush did this or that Willingham did that or that Gay supported her arguments and so on and so forth. But you need to take your time to tease out those specific data points and to write around them. Remember, body paragraphs are generally speaking 5 to 8 sentences. They don't have to all be that size, but that's a good rule of thumb, which just means here's an expectation of the size of these paragraphs. And in addition to that, I've given everyone feedback on the shape of a paragraph. You start with the topic sentence to warm your readers up to what's going to happen in that body paragraph. Then some of the data through paraphrase or quote, which we've practiced as well in prior modules. And then before you leave the paragraph, and what some of you are struggling with right now is analyze the data. Just repeating the data doesn't show how you understand it. But talk readers through it. Is this a good piece of evidence? Is this a weak piece of evidence? how or why not. Compare it to other evidence in the discussion, or compare it to where you've read other academic articles in other classes. That's fine. You don't have to bring in any outside work. But if the writer is only using personal experience, that's not really all that strong of a piece of evidence. It's called anecdotal evidence. And too much anecdotal evidence could lead you to flaws in logic. We call that the logical fallacy of, anecdotal evidence. But does the author then mix up some evidence with some personal data and some research data? And then when they use the research data, did the evidence go to really trustworthy sources? Did they name their sources? Where did the data come from? There are ways to write well, and you don't have to agree with the author to write a really good analysis essay. You might, and that's okay too, but you don't have to. So take your time. Think of yourself as a detective and go through each paragraph and find points to talk about. Some of it may be really good, but there may be elements of any of these articles that you just feel didn't live up to the rest of the text or to the seriousness of the topic, right? And your conclusion now. So that's how you get to the 3 or 4 full pages of this assignment, is you develop 4 or 5 body paragraphs, right? This is more than a 5-paragraph essay. I know that this is going to get a little bit longer for some of you than the article itself, but you're looking at what they said and you're analyzing the quality of the phrasing, the evidence, the organization, how well they understand their audience, and so on and so forth. So there's a lot of material for you to cover reasonably in 3 to 4 pages. Now, conclusion. You will restate your thesis in a fresh way while you briefly summarize those main points in new language. Because remember, imagine you're explaining a concept to a group of readers. Sometimes they don't get it the first time. So if you use slightly different language to explain the main ideas, it may sink in for them. That's the purpose of the conclusion. You do a little bit of a refresher, but don't cut and paste from earlier texts. That can look lazy, so you don't want to do that. Okay. Now draw some conclusions. This is where a lot of students maybe lost some points on the draft. It's not just enough to restate the main points, but what does this mean for readers? You don't talk to them directly, but what does this mean for them? So for example, if you made an argument that Rausch's article just wasn't strong enough because of his bias, because he was really kind of snarky in some ways when he was talking about extroverts. Perhaps you make reading recommendations of going into the library databases or finding articles from Psychology Today that also talk about the issue in a fresh way, or you can make recommendations. That's a wonderful way to relate to your audience without telling them what to do. You could say something like this. Readers who are interested in learning about the continued differences in introversion and extroversion could, and then provide some general recommendations. All right, so that's how you would do it. For Roxane Gay's article, for example, could readers go out and try to find articles that talk about an opposing viewpoint to her viewpoint that the beach isn't all that great? Are there ways to approach the text and try to find a balance of text so readers can make up their own mind? Because doesn't Gay predominantly use personal experience? Again, some of the issues that Rausch had, Gay has as well. And when we do academic research in upcoming classes, this course is to prepare you to read anybody's text critically and to not take any argument made at face value, to challenge the assumptions. But in this case, you don't have to go out and look at other texts to argue against it, but you're just looking at their internal argument. So when you choose research for your own upcoming papers and other classes, you use that same critical lens to look at that text like you did this class. So the practice, I know, feels repetitive, but it's purposeful. Your final paper is going to be 3 to 4 full pages, double-spaced in Times New Roman font, 12.1-inch margins. Let's see. It says include 3 references, and what this means is within your body paragraphs, you want to say Willingham states that, or Rausch points out, or Gay argues, or Vlalos suggests. So you're being specific to points and you're not being just general. And then you'll have an MLA Most of you will probably be using APA. I think it depends on your major. I know both, and I can help you with both. Works cited or reference entry at the end of your text. So what you do now is you go through this rubric and you use it. I would print this out. I'd print out your paper. I would go just row by row. In your overview, do you provide an overview of the work? Meaning, do you name the work? Do you name the author? And do you give just a little bit, this text is about X. If you say the article is about, you give us a background, but you don't tell me which article, you're not going to get a proficient. And you'll notice that the overview is 100% of the points to just get to proficiency. The rest of them are a little bit more nuanced. Is your thesis exceptionally clear, insightful, and sophisticated? Do you have an argument because of 3 reasons? Now, that's exceptional. Is it constructed without any issues of phrasing or parallelism? And do you have an argument? This is a well-constructed essay by Roush. This is a weak essay on introversion because, and then you have your reasons. If you have a thesis that's clear, but you don't have those reasons, you're probably going to get proficient. If you don't have an angle and you don't have the reasons, I can see that you're trying and your thesis is growing. I'll try to get you some points. Now, these 2 next sections. The main idea exceeds in the proficiency in an exceptionally clear, insightful, sophisticated, and creative manner. Boom. You have topic sentences for every body paragraph. That tells a reader what's going to happen in that paragraph, and that your paragraphs are well shaped and that you're not repetitive in the same idea paragraph to paragraph, but that you move readers forward, right? If you have your ideas, but it's not thoughtfully organized, you may move into the needs improvement category. But if you do not have multiple body paragraphs, then you're probably going to get a not evident, because the main idea needs to be organized in separate units of thought. A paragraph is a collection of sentences that is a unit of thought. Now, with the support and ideas, not just the nicely organized paragraphs that move from point to point, but do you have a balance? This is where some students struggle. If you had a lot of evidence, that's pretty good. That could get you to proficient. But you have a balance of evidence and analysis where you take the time to describe the different pieces of text that you see and how well it's written for its audience or how weakly it's organized. But you don't want to be aggressive about it. You just want to be thoughtful and insightful about your analysis. That's what's going to get you to the exemplary category. In your conclusion, did you summarize it in a sophisticated and creative manner? Did you summarize it? That form an analysis, right? Or did you mention like one point but not the rest? Or did you not summarize it? So you can kind of see how this is working, right? Did you offer some sort of meaningful connection to next steps? Or what do we do with this information to your audience? Now, articulation of response. This is grammar mechanics. If you had an error or 2, but that, a little thing here or there, you could still get exceptional, because if you could still show that all writers have an error too. I'm sure you could find an error in one of my announcements. I try my best not to have them and to proofread, but we're not perfect. But even in the proficiency category, to get to proficient, you clearly convey meaning with grammatical choices, so you show that for the most part you understand. Once in a while, do you have a fragment or do you struggle a little bit with comma use? You could still get proficient here. But getting into the needs improvement category, are you struggling with a lot of issues? Comma use in a lot of sentences, lack of capitalization at the beginning of a sentence, spelling errors are popping up. In proficient, at least you ran the spell checker. But in this one, we're noticing a lot of errors. And then in the submission as critical inconsistencies. This is a category I take very seriously. And I really debate this when I look at a text. Is a student struggling in every paragraph in most of their sentences? Are they struggling with writing in full sentences or with fragments? Are they struggling? Did they run the spell and grammar checker? Are they missing a lot of words? Are they missing just a lot of significant punctuation? But you'll also notice that this category is only 8% of the total grade. Finally, did you name your author? Clearly in the body paragraphs and in your works cited. that's the overview of this assignment. I'm running out of time, but if you have questions, reach out and let me know.